Hey everyone, what's up? This is your host, Drew from the Drew Experience, aka Autistic Charles Barkley. Make sure to hit the like, share, subscribe button to the fastest growing channel for Kyokushin Karate. Long form conversation on one Kyokushin. Real shorts are going to be on my channel, whatever. You know, as mentioned, we got to grow Kyokushin. But today's guest, oh my goodness. This is the guest of 2025. Listen, I've spoken to a lot of people, but I have to read the accolades here, okay? So listen, and he made sure I do my homework. First of all, he is a K1 and Kyokushin and Seidokaikan legend. He's had 147 official fights recorded, 131 wins, 2 draws, 11 losses, 2 no contests. He's not only a legend in that realm, he's a successful actor, he's an entrepreneur, he is also a devoted father. Oh, besides that, let me go back to that on the entrepreneur. He owns the restaurant Don Camillo in Australia, so if you're there, you better go there for fine Italian cuisine and cafes. He's also a devoted father, and he's a proud owner of 2 French bulldogs. But you know what? I say he's the real Australian 007. Go to hell, George Lazenby. This is the only 007 there is here. He's the living, the breathing, the walking, the man, my Commonwealth cousin from Australia, the real Prime Minister of Australia, Slammin' Sam Greco. Welcome to the Drew Experience, Sam.
That's one of the best introductions I've ever had. Oh my God, Michael Buffer, go. He's out. You're my man.
Hey, if you say that, I'll take it. Like, you need to hire me as your hype man. Like, I'm trying to do this for the tournaments now, you know. So, hey, if you want to hire me ever, like, let me know. I'll come down to Australia. I'll stay with, like, oh, by the way, I got to give a shout out to, like, 5 people who made this interview happen. First of all, Shihan Nicholas Pettis, Shihan Judd Reed, Sammy, Andre from MMA Figures, and Patrick Pinto back in the day. I want to thank you 5 people who made this happen. This interview would not have happened if it wasn't for you guys, because I'm speaking to the one who really helped put Australian combat sports on the map.
Thank you, man. That was a beautiful introduction, and you made me tired just listening to you. In fact, it seems like I've done a lot. I've done a lot. I mean, but it's great to be here, man, and hopefully I can share some of my experiences and knowledge with people.
Of course, Sam, and you know, obviously, you're such a Renaissance man too. I have the list of questions because, you know, a lot of people know you as Slammin' Sam, but you grew up in Brunswick of Australia. What was that like, and how did you get started in martial arts, settling on Kyokushin during that time?
First of all, I did. Yeah, you're right. Just to reiterate, I did grow up in Brunswick, Melbourne, Australia. Brunswick was a very tough area. Mm-hmm. You know, growing up in the 60s and 70s was tough enough. Living in a European house was even tougher, believe it or not. But it was an area where respect was earned; it wasn't given. Mm-hmm. So you had to hold your own. And I was only a little kid running around, you know, mixing it with the big kids. My group of friends were always 5 to 10 years older than me. Mm-hmm. I was a little gopher when I was growing up, but as I said, you know, living in a European house was hard enough as it is. You know, rules were strict. So even though I used to get in trouble all the time, I get myself in and out of trouble, believe it or not. I used to fear my dad, but fear of my dad and mum in a good sense, that was. But yeah, look, I think my dad, going back how I started martial arts, my older sister, who's 6 years older than me, she was doing Kyokushin at the time. I was playing soccer as a young kid. And Dad thought, you know what, I might get him across to do some martial arts to learn self-defense. Because my dad, sort of being in the army, Italy, motor mechanic, was very disciplined and shared some of the same values as martial arts, as karate did. So I thought it would have been a good idea to get some discipline into me. Because like I said, I was a rowdy kid. And he took me over there, and obviously with my sister would go training, I'd go training with her. And I'll be honest, I hated it. I just, you know, here I am. I didn't want to listen to instructions of my parents. Now I had to listen to an instructor, you know, and it just didn't go down well at all. And Dad forced me for the first 3 or 4 months. And then I think at the 6th month or 7th month mark, I just said I had enough. And I just wanted to play soccer because I was a soccer kid. And I think it was, that was at the age of 8, 7 and 8. At the age of 15, I did very well in soccer. I was at soccer for nearly 10 years. And I had a contract issue. I was one of the youngest players in Australia ever to make the senior team at the age of 15 and a half. And I had a contract issue of which my parents financially didn't have the money to fight it out at tribunals and courts. And my dad said, well, if that's it, you're coming out, pulling you out of soccer, that's it. So pretty much determined my future, where I was going to go. And he took me back to karate. He says, why don't you go back to karate? And I thought, I was older now, a bit more mature. And I thought, yeah, look, I'll try it. Didn't gel. It did not gel for the first month or so. And then I don't know what it was. It was the penny just dropped. We did some formations, some katas. I'll never forget that night. And I just couldn't get them right. And I'm thinking, wow, what is it with me? It was my memory. It was a memory lapse and something else was going on. And then we were trying these punches and kicks. And I remember looking around thinking, I'm not that bad. I'm actually okay here. And I started being a bit more positive rather than being negative. And this went on for weeks and weeks. Before I knew it, 6 months had passed, 12 months had passed, and I'm still there. I've been grading, and I'm starting to take a real good liking. And I started to share the same values as what my dad was talking about originally took me there. So that was my beginning, and I never looked back, ever looked back. You know, it's martial arts in general has provided me a vehicle to be healthy, a vehicle to actually know who I am as a person, a vehicle of how to treat other people, you know, and also taught me about the sports entertainment business also. So it's been amazing. I mean, martial arts isn't just about self-defense, but it's actually a lifestyle. You can implement it in your business. You can implement it into family. You can implement it. The values are just exactly the same, if not stronger.
Very true. This is a kind of like to add to that, because when you were joining it, was Shihan Cameron, then maybe Sensei Cameron Quinn, was he your teacher, or who was your original teacher?
No, my original teacher was Eddie Amin. Eddie Amin's still around now. I trained in a small dojo in Brunswick. But then from there, I went to, I was pretty much there for not even 6 months. And then I went over to a place called, a suburb called Faulkner. And my instructor there was Kerry Christopher. Mind you, while I'm here, I might as well say this. We actually lost Kerry Christopher last week.
Oh, condolences.
Died, yeah. Unfortunately, he was one of my first instructors. And that's where sort of I grew out in that area. Yeah.
Damn, that's crazy. Life is so short. That's why, like, you gotta always cherish, like, the Shihans and the senseis, because they do kind of provide, like, that familial connection, whether it be like a father or an uncle. Is that something you agree with?
Oh, look, you know, for me, they weren't just instructors. They were role models. They were mentors. One of the things, I always have the utmost respect for the individual. Mind you, there were some older instructors there, and, you know, there'd be students within the class that would look at this instructor trying to teach something, and the instructor, you know, at 60 or 70 years old couldn't get, you know, a moshigiri, you know, above his waist. But there's nothing to laugh about. The fact that he's actually still teaching, the fact that he's there every single day in front of you, trying to teach you the way of life, that's what's important, you know. I would never, ever look at an instructor and say, oh, he can't kick high, how's he going to teach me a high kick? And I think just the knowledge for me was just, you know, the technical aspect and the knowledge for me was powerful. And I've always respected that. You know, it doesn't matter who you are in life, you always have something to share with others, you know? Respect is a big thing. Yeah.
No, that's amazing. I love how you described it. Like, it's not about, like, how, like, no matter the age, as long as you're still able to do it and come to the dojo and still, like, put the ego aside, that says everything about you.
Oh, yeah, you've got to leave ego at the door. I've never been successful in life because of my ego. I've been successful in life because of hard work, discipline, and I leave my ego right at that, you know, effing door. I do, and I tell everyone that. You know, if you come in with an ego, you're getting nowhere with me. Coming to talk, coming to work, and let's get down and boogie together and do it well. That's what I'm interested in, you know?
Very true. The next thing I have to ask is, so obviously you're realizing your talent, your potential, and you did uchideshi. And how did you meet Nicholas and Judd back then, and what was it like to meet the?
Okay. Well, just in terms of that, I didn't do an uchideshi.
Oh, okay.
No, I didn't. I didn't do an uchideshi. But the way I met the boys was I was over in Japan, training and fighting at the time, and obviously knew of Judd Reed being an Australian, and also Nicholas Pettis being Canadian. I knew they were at Hombu, and it was one of my dreams always to go to Hombu. And every time I'm over there, go to Hombu. And I was over there, and I made contact with Judd through his mum and through some other mutual friends. And I said, when I'm in Japan, I'd love to take you guys out. So if you talk to Judd and talk to Nicholas, they'll tell you about the first Italian restaurant I took him to. Actually, they sent me photos of, which I don't have with me right at the moment, but I remember seeing them not long ago. And that's how I met the kids. And I thought it was very brave of them to leave, their warm-filled house, their dojo with all their friends, to go to a foreign country and to be a living student, one of, Oyama's disciples, so to speak. And, to go from a white belt to a black belt through some amazing and also traumatic experience too. And so for me, it was about, trying to live it through their eyes, so to speak. And that's why I used to catch up with them on several occasions. And up to this very day, we're still friends. We still catch up. I see Judd regularly. I do seminars with Judd also, and I do motivational talks. I got him involved not long ago. And Nicholas Pettis, obviously being a board member of Senshi with myself and most of the other legends. So, yeah, it was, that's how I met those guys, yeah.
So you said you were in Japan at the time. I went to Japan 2 years ago, captured my heart. I have to go there every 2 years. It's like my escape from reality. What was it like there in the 80s? Was it as futuristic as people say?
I think I tend to differ with that. I think it was more in the 90s. The development in Japan was more in the 90s. And I say this through the eyes of a martial artist. Kyokushin was strong in the time that Oyama was alive. Mm-hmm. There was no different functions. There was no breakaways. There was nothing. There was one man, 15 million students at the time, worldwide, and we were united. We were a union that was united. There was no buts or ifs about it. You wanted to leave. You left quietly. No one knew about it. I think in the 90s when Seidokaikan came about, which was sort of a direct competitor to Kyokushin, but they had the foresight, Seidokaikan had the foresight in the 90s to promote their fighters a lot better, a lot more in a professional way. Mm-hmm. So whatever Kyokushin wasn't doing, Seidokaikan developed that. So I believe they used the base of what Kyokushin is, all their theories and everything else, and put the professionalism to it. I'm not saying that Kyokushin wasn't professional, but not from a financial professionalism. And that's what Seidokaikan did well, and formed K1 also. The Seidokaikan fighters were paid. Hence, I fought in their world tournament, their World Cup, and won their World Cup back in '94. And there was prize money. There's also prize money in the Kyokushin World Tournament. But the difference was this, is that they gave you another step up. From Seidokaikan, you could go into K1. Seidokaikan believed that their strongest martial artists, full contact karate fighters, could beat the best kickboxers in the world. And that's how it all started. That's how this big wheel evolved. So I think it was more, to answer your question, was more in the 90s we started getting all this futuristic stuff, where it really started developing, and they invested a lot of money in bringing fighters like the Peter Ertz, Ernesto Hoosh, Jerome Labana, Ray Sefu, Mike Bernardo, the great Andy Hart. Yeah, Michael Thompson over there. So mentioning Mike Thompson, the first three Kyokushin guys to ever leave the organisation, and go to another organisation was Andy. Andy was the first. I followed, and then Michael Thompson was after us. And then there was numerous guys that wanted to come over, but weren't game enough to leave Kyokushin, for obvious reasons. While the you know, the late Oyama was alive at the time, you know. So yeah, it was quite a tough one, and if I can touch on how I left, Kyokushin, and mind you, Kyokushin to this very day, even though I was Seidokaikan at the time, Kyokushin's always been my backbone. It's been my pillar, it's been my strength, my pillar of strength throughout all my life, and I think it always will be. I believe it always will be. When I did decide to leave Kyokushin, purely because the offer from Seidokaikan was more on a professional basis, I got paid to train, I got paid to fight, I got paid to win. Now, what I was doing I was making a life for myself. You know, I was newly married. I wanted to have kids. I wanted to buy a house. So it was back in during the Singapore Oyama Cup that I approached Sosei through an interpreter, which was Cameron Quinn. And I was fortunate enough to be able to sit in the same room as Oyama in his hotel room. I was absolutely shit myself at the time. I had sweaty palms. And when he came out, it was just like this big ray of sunshine. I was so nervous, but yet so happy. I just literally had to contain myself. And I knew this introduction and meeting him was the greatest thing that's ever happened to me, one of the greatest things that ever happened to me, but I also knew that the decision I just made, and I was just about to tell him, probably wasn't going to go down well. And but I did explain to him, he was well aware of Seidokaikan, he was well aware of what they're doing and where they were going. He was very disappointed. He told me straight out he was very disappointed that I'd made that choice. But just halfway through a conversation, Oyama just got up and left. He went off into another room, and I looked at Cameron. I said, "Did I say something wrong?" And Cameron goes, "Look, just be patient, just wait." And we waited for about 10 minutes, 10 or 15 minutes, I think it was. It was the longest wait of my life because I was nervous. But people say, "Were you nervous?" I said, "Yeah, I was that nervous." It was like you couldn't pull a pin out of my backside with a tractor if that was the case. That's how nervous I was. Wow. And I remember him walking in, and he looked at me. He goes, son. He says, "I hear what you're saying. I hear that you have a family. I hear that you want to be professional. I'm not saying that we're not. And I hear what they're offering you." He says, "But the end of the decision's yours." He goes, "I do understand that." He says, "But what I'd like you to do after we finish talking," he goes, "I'd like you to, because we spoke for about just over half hour, he says, I'd like you to go back to Australia, have a think about what I said and get back to me." He says, "I'll respect your decision." He goes, "But one thing more than anything else," he goes, "I respect the fact that you've had the audacity even to make this appointment and to sit with me face to face. Wow. To tell me that you're leaving, not like some." And I knew who he was referring to. And I kept Andy Hug right out of the equation because I didn't want to flare that one up. So he was, and that's the way I've been brought up. I'm very respectful. If I've got a problem with someone, I'll go and see him. If I want to tell someone, I'll go see that person. I won't go tell someone else. And I remember coming back, fighting that tournament, coming back, and within the next week, I wrote a letter to Oyama, which I found the other day, believe it or not. I found all the letters that we corresponded, personal letters, which are awesome. And I said, "Look, I have made up my mind. I just want to thank you for giving me the experience, the life, and what it is truly to be a martial artist through the eyes of Kyokushin, through your organisation. I think what you've developed will never be broken, meaning the strength of it will never be broken. Kyokushin will always be Kyokushin. You want to talk about the hardest karate in the world? Kyokushin, hands and feet down, no problem. You can say whatever you want. A lot of people have tried to come into Kyokushin, but have been destroyed. I said, "I want to thank you all of that for giving me that vehicle, for giving me the life lessons also, and you were a mentor to me and always will be." He wrote back, never forget, he wrote back, he goes, "Look, disappointed that we've come to this," but he goes, "I respect your decision." He says, "I would like to wish you all the very best in life, in all the future doings." He says, "But also on the other hand," he goes, "I'd still like to invite you to our next World Tournament."
Amazing.
Amazing. Now, in my head, I'm thinking, that was great, but I'm thinking, I know what he probably wants to do. He wants to invite me to the 6th World Tournament, come back in, and then just line me up with, machine after machine after machine to get flogged. So I thought, when I wrote back to him, I said, thank you very much. I appreciate it. A lot of respect. And I hope to see you around. And I joined Seidokaikan and sort of stayed living there like a senior Uchideshi for a while. And eventually when I say they knew who I was, but I was still a nobody, you know. I treated myself as a nobody, as just one of them. And I used to teach also and train in the morning, train in the afternoon. I lived like a Uchideshi. My room was only about 2.5 metre by 2.5 metre with tatami mats on the ground. I had a blanket, I had a pillow, and that was it. I didn't have a wardrobe, didn't have a table, didn't have anything until, 6 months down the track, I got a little TV with a video recorder, sort of made it my home. And I lived in the dormitory with another 20 other students, including Andy. Andy and I were next door to each other, and we become very close. Michael Thompson come across too. So the three of us obviously been familiar with each other. We were with each other every day, and we trained together. We got to know each other, as martial artists, as human beings, as fighters, and the world was our proverbial oyster. It was amazing. One of the things, it was hard, and when I say it was hard, I think the Japanese students or the other foreign guys had it a bit worse than what we did. I mean, look, the facilities weren't great. 20 students. 2 communal toilets, 2 communal showers, but the toilets were Japanese-style toilets, they weren't Western toilets. So if you had a hard day of training where you got corkies and bruises on your legs and you went to squat down to do your number twos, you wouldn't get back up. Let me tell you, I used to scream, if I had a really bad day of training, and all that stuff. Some of the areas were putrid, but you know what? If I was going to make it, I had to make it under these conditions. Until I got offered to fight in the Karate World Cup in '94, 64-man eliminator, I think it was, in one day, similar to what the World Tournament was, but just in one day. And I fought in that. And my rival, Michael Thompson, who I fought in the Commonwealth Karate Games, fought in the World Tournament and got beaten due to a point being deducted for a punch that come off the shoulder, hit him in the chin that day. It was time for revenge, and we met in the final. And I ended up stopping Michael Thompson in the final. I ended up winning the 1994 World Cup, and that was an amazing experience. But what that did for me was it took me out of the dormitory and put us in a hotel, and that Andy followed, because Andy had won it in 92 or 93, and also Michael Thompson. So they started to recognise us more and started to look after us a lot more. And then endorsements started to come in, and all of a sudden we got called into a meeting and says, right, karate spirit, the voodoo and everything else is stronger than any kickboxer, any format that they'll do. We believe the karate boys can beat and can match kickboxing champions. Let's put it to the test. Who wants to be in? And Andy and I looked at each other. Andy already had 1 or 2 fights, and I thought, oh well, I can't be a little girl here. I've got to put my hand up, and I did, and off I went, and I never looked back.
Amazing, man. Amazing. That's so crazy, all that detail. And I got to ask about Andy. How did you meet him, and what was his impact he had on you? Like from this.
I've always known of Andy. I officially met him at the World Tournament. We became very good friends. Obviously, I knew Andy. I knew Michael. Michael was there at the same time, and when Andy got beaten, there's only very few people around him, close people. Michael was one of them. Obviously, his wife and a couple of his family's friends. And I remember looking at this guy, and I thought, wow, is this what people have been talking about? He was great. Andy had this natural talent, as flexible as fuck, excuse the French.
It's okay.
Yeah, as I wasn't sure whether I could swear on this thing, but anyway, it's flexible as hell, and just his persona. He was such a beautiful character, and when I found out and through him that he'd gone to Seidokaikan and he reached out, we became really good friends. we really became really good friends and really got to the extent where we lived together in Japan for a long time. When he did come to Australia, he lived at my house.
What?
Yeah, he was at my house, stayed at my house when I looked after him, and then we're back to Japan. And yeah, his dream was obviously to be world champion karate, K1 champion also, and to be a movie star. He always wanted to get into movies, and my management team, who still is with me today, Village Roadshow, they're one of the biggest movie makers in the world, roadshow pictures, and so I had that connection for him, and he didn't want to be in the game too long in terms of the fight game. He wanted to preserve himself, but I think the Japanese had other ideas for him. And to be quite honest, Andy was very loyal to people, very, very loyal. He knew what he wanted, but he was very loyal. And sometimes he found it really hard to say no. I think the Japanese had exhausted those avenues and were utilising him for their own benefits. I know this is a big statement to make, but it's only my opinion. Good opinion, that is. Yeah, and he just found it hard to say no. And I think there's only so much, juice you can squeeze out of a lemon. And eventually, yeah, it just got the better of him, and it affected his health and everything else, And then, unfortunately, I'm not saying it's Seidokaikan's fault or anything. That's not what I'm saying.
No, of course.
All I'm saying is I think you got to know when to hold him, when to fold him, and he was ready to go, but they had other ideas, and they just wanted him to prolong a bit more. Fancy losing your cash cow.
Yeah.
And they didn't want that to happen, but unfortunately, don't worry about your cash cow. Worry about someone's health before you worry about everything else. And they did care. Don't get me wrong, they did care, but I just think there was a few other things going on there too.
There's one photo that you posted on Instagram, and it's the one where you guys are in like that 90 color tracksuit, and like the smiles you guys have is like such like genuine, beautiful friendship. It's like kind of like what I have with my friend. Shout out to Mohammed Chick. Like he's like, if you ever look at my photos, like I'm always with him. That's like he's like the Andy Hug to like my Sam Greco in a sense. I should never compare myself to you're a legend. I'm not as accomplished. But you have to understand, it's like the brotherhood in that photo is like so genuine. And this is the dumbest question I'm going to ask, because there's not many English interviews out there of Andy. If there are, he maybe say one or two words. Andy spoke fluent English, right? Mostly.
Yes, he did.
Okay.
He did. Yeah, he did speak fluent English to a degree. But yeah, he'd always make it known what he wanted. Don't worry about that. He was good. He was good.
He just seemed like such a likable guy. And at the World Tournament in '91, so my Shihan, Pierre Cataford, was the cornerman for Jean Riviere, who you probably know.
Jean Riviere.
Yeah.
He hit that back spinning kick.
Yeah.
Where they both knocked each other out.
Yeah. And that's
Jean Riviere got the best of them, yeah.
Yeah, and Jean Riviere was coached by Mai Shihan, and Mai Shihan said, I remember seeing Andy hug, and the hands were like stone. He's like and he said like those are not normal. This guy is not normal. Because this guy was made in a lab, and then it's like it turns out that Andy had a very interesting upbringing, like raised by a single mom, and then the mother
yes.
she had to give him to the grandparents, and the grandparents were funding his soccer.
He was brought up by his grandmother, yeah.
Lovely, it's a very nice story, and apparently he was beautiful. A good soccer player like you. It was a similar trajectory.
Yeah. He's Andy and I trained together. We fought together a few times, even in K1. Let me tell you, Andy was, when it was time to fight, it was time for business. There was no friendship, and I was in it just as much as he was to win. And I never forget, at the end of both fights, the first time we drew, the second time I got pipped on the line, which I thought I actually won the fight. That's when he went on to fight Peter Ertz, who got knocked out. After that fight there, that I fought him I remember fighting Ray Seffu in the first round, I think it was. In the second round, I had Andy hug, and had I won that, I would have fought Peter in the final of the K1 Grand Prix. And so I beat Ray, dropped Ray with that, and then I fought Andy. And I thought I actually won that fight, and they gave it to Andy. That's all well and fine. But Andy did say to me at the end, he goes, brother, he goes, you're trying to fucking kill me. I go, Andy, I love you. You know I love you. And that's why I hit you so hard. He goes, fuck. But I think I exhausted him so much in that fight that he literally had nothing left. And the truth of the matter is he had nothing left in the tank. Nothing. Absolutely nothing left in the tank. And Peter just got the better of him and kicked him in the head early and knocked him out. It's not what you want to see, but unfortunately in this game, in this day and age and this sport, you know, we're there not to play cards. We're there to, it's a chess game. It's about me making you make a mistake and checkmate.
It's very, very true. I got to ask about Seidokaikan because I'm so curious about it because, yes, it's like what you call a breakaway, an offshoot, pick the term. And we all do Kyokushin, it's in our heart. Nicholas, who was on my show, Nicholas, who was on my show like 2 weeks ago, which will release which is coming out tomorrow, which will be coming out this week as we record. He said it's kind of more action in a sense. I'm paraphrasing here, but what's the differences that you felt from Seido and Kyokushin? If you could explain it.
I think Seidokaikan, as I mentioned before, they had that, and this is going to sound. Don't take this in the wrong way because Kyokushin was professional in its own way, but I think Seidokaikan had the foresight to change with times. That's probably a better way for me to put it. Whereas Kyokushin didn't. Kyokushin was just very traditional, let's go. Whereas Seidokaikan made the adaptable changes it needed to be for the modern time, you know, and develop their fighters not just for full contact karate, but also to compete against anyone in the world. Yeah, in kickboxing experience, you know. So that was their thing because they had the foresight of bringing their boys up to K1, which K1 was pretty much all martial arts you could compete in. So yeah, that's you know, and also they had the backing of, you know, their local TV stations, massive sponsors. You know, they grew with the times. If that makes sense, they grew with times. That's the key element. I think that was the biggest change. They grew with times and they looked after their fighters a lot more. We got endorsements. We were able to train. We were able to travel from all, you know, areas of the world to come and meet, congregate, you know, in Japan. So yeah, look, those sort of things is what stood out as a difference to Kyokushin.
Interesting.
You know, did they have better fighters than Kyokushin in terms of karate? No way. Kyokushin will always dominate in that area. You know, what they try to do, they bought us going across. Do you understand? They're buying talent. And then from buying talent, we develop other guys. So, like I said, we go down in history. Andy, myself and Andy will probably go down in Kyokushin history as the first three ever to leave Kyokushin to go to Seidokaikan to form K1. But, you know, everyone else wanted to. They could see the money we were making. They could see the accolades we were having and the celebration and everything else. And I think they wanted to be there, but they couldn't move while Oyama was alive. And then when Oyama died, the strength of what we call was the biggest organisation in the world just perished and just broke off in different, you know, fractions, and which was really, really sad. It just went to show that that it was false to a certain degree. There was this false strength, unfortunately, and the only person, the glue to keeping it all together was Oyama. You know, given the passing of Oyama, everyone decided they could do it better and they could do everything. No one did anything better. And then when you had the likes of, you know, Francesco Filio, because we were prepared in K1, we're prepared to invite anyone. We'd fight anyone. You know, the likes of, you know, Globo Fatosa and Francesco Filio coming over and a couple of the others. We wanted them to come over. We wanted them to see what sort of a lifestyle we were having. And sure enough, before we knew it, they got permission to fight, you know, across in K1. And, you know, they both, all those boys did an enormous success, you know, in mates and dollars, you know.
Yeah.
There's only so much you can do for free.
Exactly. No, it's very true. And it's so true what you said there, because honestly, like when you got, like you and Andy are basically the pioneers of like, and it's kind of like, you know, you started a trend where you said like, guys, we can't do this for free. Like, you know, we have, some of us have families, some of us have like full-time jobs. Like, some could say, oh, he's a renegade. No, no, no. And if anyone says that, I will bat for Sam here to
Yeah.
say, you don't fight for free. Do you go? It's like you get paid for it. You know, you only have a window. You only have this much of a window. So this man
Yeah.
here, to every single competitor that hears the stories, you're getting firsthand knowledge here that I'm giving you, that you're getting, of why you can't do this for free. You have to be your own brand. You have to know your value, like you do, Sam. And that's
Yeah.
something you tell all your boys or
I
women that want to come to you, right?
yeah. I look. I'm going to be honest with you. You know, I got a lot of flack when I left the organisation. You know, you're doing the wrong thing. You know, where's your heart at? What are you doing? And I just turned around. You know, I took it at heart. I took it to heart for the first, I reckon, a couple of months. I was getting all these phone calls and messages and so on. And then I thought, I don't need to impress anyone. I'm an individual. I stand alone. I don't need groups of people around me. I can stand tall. I've been taught, this sport has taught me to stand tall, chin up, you know, chest out. Let's do business, no problem. And with all the flack that I copped, you know, I used that negativity into a positive. And I used to say to myself, and I remember saying this to Andy and Michael, I said, you mark my words, boys, all the shit we're getting right at the moment, everyone's going to be eating their own words at the end of the day. There'll come a day where they would have done so much with so little reward that they're going to think, fuck, look at these guys here. They're fighting, they're traveling, they're on TV commercials, they're on, you know, they've got dolls of them, they've got tracksuits, they've got this, they're fighting in stadiums with 70-odd thousand people, 100,000 people. You know, who does that? That's exactly right. So, you know, I'm glad that these guys, even though we might have been mocked by them, I know behind closed doors, they'd be thinking to themselves, why couldn't I be him? Why couldn't I come across? Loyalty is great. I'm not saying don't be loyal. And I was always loyal to Kyokushin. And I think we all were. But there comes a time in life where loyalty is enough. You've got to just say, okay, what do I need to do to survive? And if the organisation or the person you talk to can't see what you want to do, or what you want to achieve in life, well, they're not there for you. They're there for their own greed. Yeah. And I'm fortunate that I found people to be around me and sort of led me in a way for me to pursue my own career and pursue my own life. And, you know, today I look back and I thank those haters so much, because they're the ones that fueled me to do what I'm doing and do it at my best. And I was damned, you know, there was no way that I was going to give this thing up, you know, unless, you know, I won a world title, you know, like I won, you know, twice I won the WAKO world title and so on. I was very close to winning the K1 just by a smidgen, you know, coming third, obviously. But, you know, it's to me, you can't take that. You can take my world titles away, but you can never take my experiences.
No.
That's something you can't take. And all these people that bagged us, all these people said, you know, you're not loyal. You know, I've got one thing to say to them, which I won't say here, but, you know, where are you today and where am I? That's all that matters, you know?
Amazing. You took the words out of my mouth. That's exactly like how I felt like when I went through like a lot of hardship, like after my mom passed away, like when we first talked. So by the way, guys, for those who know, this conversation has been in the works for 3 years, just, you know, timing and all that. And I'm happy it happened today, not back then. And, you know, I went through a lot, and you really realize who your true friends are when like you hit a wall or when you hit rock bottom. And, you know, there's a lot of hangarounds that are going to come around when you're high, but when you're at your lowest and you go quiet, that's when you see who your real friends and family are.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, no, you're right. But it's actually taught me a lot about life and how to live, how to conduct myself. Um, one of the biggest things, and I really mean this, Kyokushin was all about fighting. Seidokaikan was all about fighting. K1 was about you being a fighter and being an entertainer. It taught you how to be an entertainer. As you said before, you are the product. I am the product. So I needed to be, you know, I need to look after myself. I need to be endorsable. I need to be a role model. I need to be a voice piece, you know. So, you know, it taught me a lot about the entertainment business also, because Being a great entertainer, having endorsements, you make money while you sleep. Being just a fighter, you can only make money while you're active. That was the difference.
Very true.
So,
I gotta ask about K1 because I mean, like we've gone into like like the training and all that. What what was it like the adrenaline when you got to walk out to the iconic Bad Boy song? What made that?
yeah.
What made K1 so mystic to you? It's like to me, in my opinion, you guys were like the Chicago Bulls of the '90s in Japan. When you think of it, like you had Andy,
Oh, without a
you guys
doubt.
like
Yeah.
Jordan. You know what I mean? Like you guys were like on that aura. Tell me about that mystique. What was going on in your head when Bad Boy started playing, and you must have been like, it's go time. It's show time.
I'll be honest with you. One of the I've travelled the world. One of the biggest things with the Japanese fans, whether the arena had 30,000 people, whether the arena had 70 or 100,000 people, it was so mystical walking into that arena because with the Japanese fans, if they hate you, they won't say anything. They just go quiet, and if they love you, they'll rip the roof off, and then they go quiet again. Through the action, they go through. It's sort of up and down.
Yeah.
But they're really one-eyed. When I say one-eyed supporters, they're there with you. They make you feel at home. They make you feel like one of them. You know, they even though they follow their own Japanese, they love their Japanese. They love the foreigners. And for me to walk out in such a massive crowd with bad boys going on, because for me, my switch, I used to turn into a bad boy. You know, and when I say bad boy, and that sort of came about with the fact that if Sam Greco hit you with one punch and shook you, guaranteed there was another 30 coming straight after it. That was my point of difference with everyone. Everyone knew that if I caught him with one, there was a barrage of about 20 coming after. And the late Branko Sikotic, when I beat him, that fight should have been stopped 30 punches before I finished him, you know. And I don't stop until the referee gets in the middle. I just turn into a badass, not being disrespectful. I'm mature about it, but I'm a total badass when I get in there. And if I hurt you, be careful. You know, it was on. It was on. And I've been in wars, man. I've been in some wars. I've been dropped. I've been getting back up. But that's what makes me, you know, who I am. But overall, that experience, nothing can replicate it.
No, I can't. There's a video I saw where like they were interviewing Japanese fans and they're saying, as you said, they love the foreigners. They're like, who do you think will win? And like they go Andy Hug, and then one go and like there's like and then Masaki had everyone. They're like Masaki, and then there's like a bunch of like, Mrs. Greco, I'm really sorry. This is just what's on the video here, so please don't kill your husband. There's like a bunch of these female fans, and they go, oh, Sam Greco. And I was like, oh, damn, Sam's got like a fan club here, so I see what you mean.
Oh, we definitely had fan clubs. I never forget going back to leaving the venue. We get a bus. All the fighters would get a bus and go back to the hotel, and we'd have all these groupies hanging around for days. You know, just hanging around, just wanting to get photos and autographs, and you know, I can't even tell you how many autographs I've signed. And you know, Andy was so popular. It was ridiculous. They couldn't go anywhere. We couldn't go anywhere together. I mean, I was popular, but he was the king. You know, a lot of respect to that. That we lost him way too early, way too early.
No, it's really sad. And I want to ask this because you guys were in K1, and this is like something I speaking which, before I asked it, Shihan Glaube had a great story. By the way, thank you, Shihan Glaube, for really also making this interview happen. Great friend of the show, by the way. And also, and he's got a home in Montreal, like you do, Sam. So if you ever come to Montreal, you'll be well taken care of.
Definitely.
Glaube had a good story. He said there was one time he walked into the arena, and the room where you guys like put the gloves on, and apparently you were singing Roxanne to like break the mood. Do you remember that story?
Yeah.
He said
I do. I remember exactly where it was. Was it the Tokyo Dome? I think it was. I think it might have been at the Tokyo Dome. Yeah. I do certain things. Look, I do certain things to break the ice. I'm a master of mind games too, and people say, you know, you're nervous when you fight. Jeez, I've had 147 fights, you know, bare knuckle, kickboxing, MMA, and also, let alone the wrestling ones too. But, you know, I've always been nervous. And it's those simple nerves that are the things that keep me in check. It's those simple nerves that keep me on my toes. It's those simple nerves that make me focus. But when the bell goes and they say fight, the exchange of the first punch or the first kick is when everything just goes whoosh, just drops. And it's like, okay, let's time to party now. Let's go. So yeah, I did some weird things, but I always also, on the same token, I had rituals. I did the same thing. I wore the same color. You know, I used to wear black underwear all the time. And my red corner was my corner. That's it. You know, when I fought from the blue corner, whenever I did, which wasn't as often, but you know, I used to really have to talk to myself in a different way. I had the same music. Occasionally, I'd change it here or there for certain purposes. The only reason why I changed music, if something did happen in the lead up to the fight, whether it be a training issue or a coach issue or family issue. Sometimes I used to change the music purely to have a different meaning and just to inspire me. I never just changed the music for the sake of changing it. Everything had a purpose, including the colour of my underwear, the prayers before the fight and after the fight, the people I hung around with, which weren't many. There was only a handful. I did everything sort of ritually, and it got me where I needed to go. And there was a few road bumps along the way, but hey, that's what experience is about. When it's too comfortable is probably when it's probably too dangerous.
Very true. Yeah, so I have to ask this because, you guys are K1. Was there ever a thought, and I always thought of this, and it's something I talked with some of my friends, what if the K1 guys stood with the early UFC guys? I think you guys could have done some damage and probably won a few of those tournaments back then, like in the early days. Not the Dana White era. We're talking like the SCG, Bob Meyerowitz era, like when Gerard Gordeau fought Hoist Gracie, that kind of era.
Well, they did. But remember those days, there was no rules.
No.
The only rule was you had to walk in the cage. Once they closed the door, it was on for the young and old. You could headbutt, you could groin strike, you could do all that. I mean, to me, that's pretty unprofessional, yeah? But it's what started the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championships. It's what really made the sport, and all they could do was be better than the last show they had. And they did. They started developing rules and everything else. And when they started developing rules, it started to seed out all the earlier guys that were there. And allowed all these newcomers to come in because there were all modified rules, and there was rules now. So I think if they had the no rule, there wouldn't be 800 competitors. There'd be probably 300 competitors. In the UFC, there's over 800 on the list, and there's probably another 8,000 waiting. But at least you know what you're getting into. Whereas in the earlier days, you didn't. I fought in MMA too. When I fought Heath Herring, when I fought, Lyoto Machida. Actually, I'll never forget, when I fought Heath Herring, I fought him in Japan, and Heath Herring used to fight in Pride. And Pride and K1 always had a rivalry, and I remember going to the rules meeting, and they asked, "Oh, do you want head kicks on the ground?" And I turned around and I said, "No, I'm fine without head kicks on the ground." And I remember Heath Herring turned around with his trainer and everything. He goes, "Well, hang on a minute." He goes, "That's our rules. If you come into our rules, that's exactly what you've got to fight." And I turned around to my trainer and I said, "He better be careful what he wishes for." Now, to me, it was a bit disrespectful, but on the same token, I can understand. How did Heath Herring lose? He went for a kick, I made him miss, and I football kicked him on the ground. Football kicked his head on the ground. And then I wanted to stomp on him. There's pictures out there that show that. Now, all respect to Heath, you're a beautiful man, mate. I still love you, and I still appreciate the experience and the fight. There was no malintent to hurt you or disable you in any way. It's just a fight game, and I suppose you would have done exactly the same to me. But I fought amongst those rules with head kicks on the ground. Let me tell you, they were brutal. It got to a stage really bad in Japan where guys like, I'm just trying to think of his name now. Famous Japanese. No, not Minotauro. Oh, Minotauro is one of them. No, but Japanese boy. Famous guy. Used to come out with a mask too. It's on the tip of my tongue. Sakuraba, yeah. You look at Sakuraba's fights, some of his fights, guys are north-south on him, and they're kneeing him in the head. You become brain dead in no time. And I think there was one stage where he copped that many knees to the head. I think the crowd was feeling it. And from that day, I think they sort of went off, and the committee got together and said, "Hey, we've got to really pull up on these knees to their head." Because at the end of the day, it's a sport. Yeah, you're not out there to kill each other. You're out there to beat each other, and there's rules, and abide by those rules. So I think they had to implement that from that day on, because a lot of guys were getting caught in north-south position and getting kneed in the head and kicked in the head on the ground or stomped. You know, I don't. Even though I fought in those rules, I don't think it's a sport when it gets to that.
Yeah, it's more like it's like a brawl. It's just like a bar. It's like a barroom brawl at that point.
Yeah. I don't think it's a sport when it gets to that. I think there's got to be set rules, and that's what makes people great. Being able to abide by those rules, and like I said to you before, it's a chess game. It's a matter of you make a mistake and checkmate.
Speaking of chess, you fought Lyoto Machida, and that was like the one time we could really see Shotokan versus high-level Kyokushin. What was it like fighting when he was then known as Lyoto? Because
Well, Lyoto was I fought him. He was one of Inoki's favourite sons. I knew I was up for a battle against a UFC fighter, Shurikan, very technical, very long in his stance, very good jiu-jitsu, black belt jiu-jitsu. Who am I coming from, karate to kickboxing, to no MMA experience. I mean, I did have a little bit. I did train with, one of my first experiences with Noguera, Little Nog, training in Japan and then training with the Japanese MMA guys. But the Japanese were good enough to bring over some great Brazilians to train with. And I learned a lot. And I had my own trainers, MMA trainers. And getting ready for that fight, I had nothing to lose, everything to gain. And that was the truth. And I'll be honest, to this very day, I thought I beat Lyoto. But obviously, being the favourite son, they split decision. They gave it to him. But for me, irrespective of the result, for me it was a win, because Sam Greco has, to date, and I put the MMA into it too. Gone from bare knuckle karate to kickboxing to MMA to wrestling. I've pretty much done the whole circle of life in terms of that martial arts. So to me, as I said to you before, it's the experiences that you can't take away from it. I could talk about them all day. I could make your hair stand on ends. You'll never do it, so to speak, because it's already been passed, but hopefully you do something better. So I say to people, whatever you could learn out of martial arts, irrespective of discipline, whether it be boxing. I put boxing under the martial arts. It doesn't really matter. It's as long as you've got a form of discipline and it's a combat sport, I think there's something to learn. The amount of guys that I know that said, I want to be a fighter, until they realise what it takes to be a fucking fighter, that you've got to get up, early in the morning and, go for your runs, whether it be at 4:30 in the morning, freezing cold, get out there and do what needs to be done. What? No, you want to be in bed? No. Get out of bed. This is exactly what we're going to do. Go back to training at lunchtime, then go do your rehab, and then go back at night and teach or do whatever. It's a full-time dedication, and not many people are cut. You might be cut out for it for a month or 2 or 3 months, or it might be 6 months, but a lifetime of whether it be I've been in the game 40 plus years, and man, I'm grateful every single day. I'm glad I took the path I did. I'm broken, yes, in terms of injuries. I've still got, I'm turning 58 this year, and I sustained a lot of injuries throughout my career. But I'm still walking, I'm still breathing, I'm healthy. I still train, I still do stuff, I still teach. I go all over the world. I'm part of the UFC. I teach in the UFC. I teach, in Europe with Senshi. One of the fastest, biggest growing organisation to be. So yeah, I'm grateful, very, very grateful.
That's amazing. To take it to Senshi, how do you feel about joining it with all the legends now that you competed with, but now they're brothers? And what does it mean to you guys to finally come together to build something that's going to modernize striking martial arts?
It's funny you ask me this question, and this goes back to, let's go back to the raw basics, where it was Kyokushin on its own, and then from Kyokushin, Seidokaikan was developed, and then Seidokaikan developed into K1. I think we've just gone back in time, so to speak, but in 2025, where we've got Senshi is like presuming it's like, Kyokushin and Seido together. Now we're moving this competition up into I wouldn't call it a K1, but something similar. So we've got something to feed off. That's why it's important to have all that knowledge, all that power and knowledge, such as guys as the Francisco Filio, Globo Fitosa, Nicholas Pettis, myself. You got Albert Kraus. You got there's a vast variety of Kyokushin boys there also besides K1. The man himself, Shihan Ibor over there, his mindset of developing something, he knew that he had to get all these people in. And with all our heads together and the experiences that we've gone through Seido, Kyokushin and K1, there's no reason why we can't reproduce that on a better level in the years to come. And that's exactly where Senshi is heading. We have got the foresight, like Ishii-san had for Seidokaikan K1, we have it here. And the beauty of what we've got is that we're not just traditional, we're open to ideas, and we're open to make it a professional league, and help people from all over the world, but also invite people from all over the world, best fighters all over the world. We want the best fighters from all over the world to come and compete. We want you to test yourself against the best, and we walk around. Today, I'm Senshi. At the end of the day, Kyokushin's always going to be my blood. Seido to a certain degree. K1 will always be my blood. And now it's Senshi. But it's through that same martial arts we're still evolving.
That's amazing. No, honestly, it's really amazing to see what Senshi's doing, because they're bringing everyone together. And, those who want to join, I say, guys, take advantage of it, because you have an opportunity to help build something that was dormant for so long. So when I see people like yourself, Shihan Sam, Sensei Andres Nakahara, the Brazilian 007. I'm sorry, you have some competition there. The Australian 007, he's the Brazilian one. And if I mention his name, there's going to be a divorce that happens, because, hey, he's just Mr. GQ of Brazil. Sorry, Sensei Andres, I'm just kidding. You got Uerten, you got Tariel, you got Ernesto, Peter, yourself, Nicholas. There's just so much talent there, and it's amazing to see. So you must have a blast with these camps. And
I do, and it brings back some great memories. But most of all, there's such, when we're in one major hall, you've got 1,500 to 2,000 students in there on a summer camp, and you've got all these top name instructors in one room. The library of, or the wealth of experience and the wealth of knowledge in there. It's something beyond this world. And if anyone out there is listening to this podcast, honestly, if you could get yourself out to, one of the Senshi camps, probably one of the biggest ones is their summer camp, the first week of July, every year, even though we have about 4 or 5 camps a year. If you can get yourself out there amongst some of the best technicians and instructors around the world, hey, it'll be one of the biggest things you've ever done. Invest in yourself, because it'll all pay off at the end.
So true. And I got to ask this, taking it away from martial arts, you've done so much in your life. You've done acting, you're an entrepreneur. What's the most proud accomplishments you've had outside of fighting for you? It's a tough one, I know.
It is a tough one, but I'm going to be brutally honest. I think it's raising a family with my beautiful wife and having kids. That's probably been my biggest accomplishment, because it's every man's dream. I believe it's every man's dream. I don't know about others, but I'm generally speaking, to have a career, get married, have a career, have a family, and live life and pass on all these messages and experiences to your kids, and develop them to either live your life after you've gone, or do their own thing. And so that's probably the biggest accomplishment. Is raising a family is not easy. It never was and never will be. People say it's easy. It's not. We were talking about this the other day. In this day and age, the way the world's going, I think, we're talking about education, and my common reaction when people talk about schooling and education. I said, forget schooling for education. I said, education starts at home, starts with family. That's where your education starts. Yeah. Don't expect school these days to educate your kids, because it won't. If you really want to know what education is about, it starts at home with good parents. So their biggest accomplishment, probably the most proudest accomplishment, was having my two beautiful girls, including my wife. It's three. I go home to three girls and a Frenchie, King. Absolutely beautiful, and I'm enjoying this time of my life. I'm sort of slowing down from the fight game. I mean, even though I'm still teaching and still travelling and doing all that, I somewhat slowed down, and enjoying and relishing a little bit more family time. Probably time that I can't get back, but I'm doing the best I can. I'm honest about it.
That's true. Not only that, I love when I see the post too. Like, I mean, guys, it's tough having male role models these days. So I'm gonna say, please follow Sam Greco, because you're gonna see his post. This is what a man is. This is how what a hard work. As Robert De Niro said, the real strong man is the hardworking man. And I see how like proud of you of your daughter. She does her own show. Like, I mean, I think she's like kind of a movie buff herself. Like she's really worked hard. Like, so is there anything? Do you want to plug in what she does here? Because as I said,
she's an amazing individual. Both my girls are amazing individuals. Both graduates. Scored very, very, very highly in school, the top, 3-4% of the country. And they're both university graduates. And she's gone into sort of the film side of things. She does her own podcast too now. She competed in the Miss Universe Australia last year, got pipped on the line, got runner-up. Again, I thought she won, but probably a bit biased. But she went on to do bigger and better things. The winner, unfortunately, didn't, but irrespective. But that was a great platform for her to learn from, of what it's all about. But she's still learning. She's 26, and my younger girl, she's studying biomed to be a doctor.
Wow.
So yeah, hey, I'm going to put this out there. Between my wife, my oldest daughter, my youngest daughter, the three of them, they're all university graduates. I never was. I wanted to get out of school in year 10, I think it was, year 11. I went right through, didn't go to university. I just went to work. I just loved my sport too much to continue on reading books. Hated reading until I met my management team, and they used to make me read to just improve my knowledge, not just about karate, but it's about general life, about politics, about history, and about everything. So I thank them a million times. But no, I've got three brain surgeons at home, and that I go home to, and I'm just a breadwinner.
And you got the dogs too to help you, like those.
And
dogs.
I've got my beautiful dog, Frenchie. Yeah, he's king, absolutely amazing.
Well, Sam, I really want to say, like it's such an honor to have you on. It's such a long time coming, and I really hope that I lived up to your expectation of what was expected. And if you have any feedback for what I do, I mean, I'm sure you've seen like the post-fight interviews I do at tournaments. And so if you have any feedback you want to give, please, I'll take it. I know you're honest, so I really hope I lived up to your expectations today.
Well, first and foremost, I want to thank you for Drew, or thank you and Drew's experience for giving me the opportunity to talk and share a few of my life experiences. I've got plenty more, but we haven't got 3 days. I just want to thank you for giving me the time. I don't know, there's a big time difference between Australia and Canada. So thank you once again. Hopefully this is the first of many. It'll be different, obviously different topics. For me, it's about helping people today. And if it means one word to help someone in life, will be it. But I think honesty and loyalty is probably the biggest thing. And I just want to say to you, keep doing what you're doing. And I'm proud of what you're doing, and giving me a platform to at least voice my opinion on certain things and my experiences. And I look forward to seeing you when I'm in Montreal.
Round 2 and round 3 are coming, and as I said, hey, Shihan Dominic and Shihan Pierre, you got to bring this guy down. Like, I keep begging them, but I don't beg them. I was like, guys, you got to bring him down. You got to bring him down. It's like, will he come down? And they're like, yes, he'll come down. And I'm like, so Dominic's going to work it, but no, Shihan, where can people connect with you? Say all your platforms, because follow him. This is history right here. I'm sorry if I'm amped.
No, guys, so you can follow me on Instagram, where you can go to my, Sam Greco _K1, which is my Instagram handle, or go to my website. You can contact me via my website on www.samgreco.com.au. Other than that, thank you very much once again, guys.
Thanks, guys. All right, make sure to hit the like, share,
Thanks, Drew.
subscribe to the Drew Experience. Sam, pleasure doing this, man. We're gonna do it again.
Thank you.
Us.
Puss.